make her welcome Lauren Daigle. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thanks
I got to
for
tell you,
having me.
we were on vacation when the record label called and said, "Hey, I get the text. I'm actually in Tennessee. We're in the Smokies, and I got the text that said, "Call me ASAP, Lauren Daigle." And normally when you're on vacation, you're like, "It can wait 2 weeks." Not when it's Lauren Daigle. So I'm calling Chris Love back, and I'm like, "Talk to me." And so here we are today. So this is so great.
Well, this is awesome. I wish I was with you we're in the Smokies. Oh,
yes.
I love it.
Yeah.
We took a family trip. Is everybody from Georgia? Okay, cool. So, sort of semi, yeah. We took a family trip this year to Blue Ridge Mountains. It was incredible. We're going to try to make it like a family tradition to come and see the colors change and all of that. But I'm glad that you answered the call. Thank you.
Yes, I did.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to get to some Q&A.
Okay.
But one quick thing, this is a mixture of, we've got some folks who won, we've got some sweet donors of the radio station, so it's a sweet mixture of people in the room today. And Joy Crew, who really help us, they're our street team. But we had two winners in particular, Lauren, and I think this was last week, where we sent out a challenge on the morning show, and we said, okay, and we've got a text line, and we said, okay, to win a spot at this exclusive time with Lauren next week, you've got to send us your best Lauren getup. Like, you've got to dress like Lauren. You got to dress like Lauren. We had two winners. They nailed it. Yes. They nailed it. So I know you're one of them. Stand up. Yes, so she was dressed just like you.
Yes. Okay,
and then there was another one. Is she here? Oh, okay. Oh, stand up. Okay.
Come on.
So I just want you to know these
Do you have
two
the pictures?
Oh, when you're singing,
yeah,
I will find them. I'll pull them up and show them to you.
I gotta see.
Yeah.
Yep. What impression am I making on this world?
All right, I've got my phone here.
Okay.
Because there's so many things, Lauren, that we could say about you, and I didn't want to forget anything, so I made some notes. But the reason we're here today is that Lauren has put out a new record, and of course, anytime Lauren puts out a new record, we're counting down the days. So the first part of it's already been released back in May, and the second part of the record is going to be released in September. So we're looking forward to that.
You and me both.
Yes.
I'm so ready.
And honestly, Lauren, well, let me say this first. First of all, you're a Grammy winner. You've had over 1 billion streams. Y'all think about that. 1 billion streams, not 1 million, 1 billion streams. There's a lot of people listening to some Lauren Daigle. You've got platinum albums. You've got sold out tours everywhere, a world tour. And then buku number ones. I didn't even go back and count. You've just had a lot of number ones. But Lauren, I mean this with all sincerity, your voice is, when we look back at this time period, your voice is going to be one of the female voices that goes down in history. Like, you're going to be along with the Whitney Houstons, the Barbra Streisands, the Adeles, the Carole Kings of the world. That is you. And for us to be sitting here with you today is really, really special.
Thank you. I'm getting tears in my eyes.
No, you are. And what's so funny is I can remember meeting you, back at Chasco, back behind, the little festival, and here you are now. And who would have known then all of those things that I would have just, named.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So I used to work at this Mexican restaurant called Chewies. Do you have Chewies in Atlanta? Okay. So here I am. I just got signed to Centricity, brand new artist. I had no idea what I was doing. And I just remember thinking, I get to write songs in the day, and then I wait tables at night, slinging burritos. And I loved it. Every second of my life, I loved it. And this past week, I was with some friends, and I said, I'll tell you, I don't really feel much different than those Chewies days.
Yeah.
Like, even with all of that, I feel like, okay, now I can pay my bills a little better.
Yeah.
I'm not quite so 20 shifts later, I'm like, I think I can buy like a little taco now.
Yeah.
But I it's funny because even with little, like when I was working at Chewies, I would positioned myself in a way to say, okay, God, what do you have? What are we going to do here? I'm going to work really hard at Chewies. And I remember taking a trip with one of my friends to Nova Scotia. We went all the way to Cape Breton in that area, and it was breathtaking. But I always loved to travel. Like, that was, my mom said when I was a little kid, I'd get a little allowance, $1 here, $1 there. And she would ask me, what do you want to do with this money? And I say, put it in the bank, make a bank account. I want to travel the world. So it didn't matter if I was traveling the world on a Chewy salary, just hustling the best that I could, or traveling the world singing for people. It really feels like, I don't know how to explain that, but when you're waiting tables, you get a one-on-one interaction with that particular table, right? When you're singing a song, you get that one-on-one interaction with the person that's in front of you. And so it's really wild, like hearing you list all these things. It still feels like, oh, okay, I just graduated a little bit. I went from high school Chewies to now I'm in college.
You graduated. You graduated. Well, let's talk about the record. And I know you're going to share some coming up, so we don't want to take away from that. But just overall, the overall sound of the record. With this particular record, tell me if I'm catching what you were sharing. Yeah. It just feels, Lauren, with this particular record, that you are just painting with every single color in the rainbow. It is just sonically, and I mean, it's just a little bit of everything. Yes.
Well, every child comes to a Q&A. We have like a VIP thing with our tour where I do a Q&A before the show, and every child asks, what's your favorite color? It's like inevitable. And so I used to give like a specific color, and now I'm like, I love the rainbow. Have you ever seen God's promises? They're so beautiful. And so I talk about the colors and everything. So it's very true. Like, even the record cover is just full of color. I had the privilege of working with this producer. His name is Mike Elizondo. Does anybody know the movie Encanto? Yeah, he did all the music for Encanto. He has worked with everybody from Eminem to Gwen Stefani. Like, he is a legend in the music industry. And the thing that I love about him the most is how meek he is. He's not someone whose name is in lights as far as like producers are concerned, He's someone who kind of stays in the shadows but has more influence than you'd ever know. And I like those kind of people. He's someone who championed my creative vision and creative voice in a way. So I had experiences, where you go in, it's the producer's domain. They're going to do the thing how they want. And then you walk out, you have a song, and you just sang on it. And I've also been in situations like I was with Mike where he says, hey, what do you want to do? Like, how do you want these drums to sound? And I'm literally singing the drum parts to him. Like, it's just crazy. It's a much different experience. And he understood the like collaborative effort that I make in life. He like could actually tangibly create that in the room whenever we were recording. So every person that you hear, like the instruments on the record, we were all recording at the same time. So really old school. Like, a lot of people, they send their little CD, their file over on a computer, and that's their part, and they send it in and whatever. But we actually, the guitar player, the piano player, the organ player, the drummer, me, the bass player, we were all in the room at the same time recording together. And so it was such a holistic experience. Yeah, like family. And we did this thing the other day at the Bluebird Cafe, and we had all the writers and some of the musicians that were on the record come in, and we left that room like, it was kind of like, wait, God, did you just touch down in here? Like, it was the wildest. I said, you think about career highs as like, oh, I played Carnegie Hall. I never knew, I didn't in my mind know what that room had in store, what God had in store for that day. And what I told, because people really responded. They came up afterwards and said things like, people that wouldn't necessarily talk about God would be saying, like, what is going on? I feel cleansed and things like that. And I remember just thinking, well, I thought that was really special, but clearly everybody's talking about it. And this is what, if you know Cody Carnes, he sings about. So he says this, and I couldn't agree more, that whenever you're writing a song, in the experience of writing, whatever revelation that you're given in the process of writing a song kind of encrypts itself, like it encodes itself onto a song. And when you get to deliver that message, it's almost like the revelation that you had behind the veil then gets uncovered and disclosed to the people in the room. And that's what it felt like. It's like, wow, every person in that room got to feel like they were a part of writing this music because they got to experience all of us together. And so this is a very long-winded way of saying I just genuinely, the creative process was so beautiful. The things that God redeemed for me in that process, like it really felt like we had just come out of COVID, and I remember thinking to myself, I don't know if I'm supposed to do music. I think everybody probably had that like midlife crisis, extra late crisis, like whatever you want to call it, crisis. I was just in this season of really trying to figure out how am I supposed to trust you? All of my constructs have flipped. Like I thought that the world was a certain way, and why are people so angry? There's just so much. And then I don't know if anybody felt this. Are there any medical workers in the room? Okay, so this is going to sound crazy. I have a lot of family members that are in the medical field, but I kept getting this message, and this is for anybody in the room that might have like relayed something that wasn't true, right? So what was the essential workers? Yes. Essential workers. Okay, raise your hand if you were an essential worker. Essential. Okay, essential. Anybody else? Yeah, okay. They're very essential. Okay, so in that time when the world's heart is breaking and there's so much going on, the thing that I would do naturally is say, okay, where can I infuse the Holy Spirit? Where can I infuse elements of His goodness, His kindness? The medium in which I use is my voice, right? Always use my voice. That's like how I've reached the hearts of people with God's hand, right? So fast forward, I couldn't work during that time. And after a while, you get how I interpreted it, which I didn't really know in the time, was I'm non-essential. And so I started thinking to myself, like, maybe this isn't what I'm supposed to do, because when the world really falls apart, I can't do what I love to do. I can't be there. I can't be the hands and feet. I did think maybe I'm going to go into the medical field. I had the moment. I was like, see, when the world shuts down, they're able to still do what they are called to do. And, and there was just this feeling, thank God we're on the other side of all this, but this was what was going on while I was writing this record. And I remember being tail tucked and all the things, like, I don't think I'm going to do music anymore. I don't know how to pursue this with the same heart again. And it was definitely time to write. There was a swift kick in the tush, like, it's time to write. Get after it. And I remember telling my manager, okay, there's only one person that I can write with if that's the case. Like, I'm going to slowly edge myself into this and trust this process again. And his name was Jonas Myron. And he wrote Loyal on How Can It Be on that record. He wrote 10,000 Reasons and a lot of other incredible worship songs. And the Barbra Streisand, he writes for Barbra Streisand. Like, he has incredible songs out in the world and loves the Lord. Like, he is a Jesus guy through and through. It's really cool. But I was like, I can trust that I'll be in safe company, because I can say, like, I'm a little bit falling apart and I don't know how to do this again. Like, I'm approaching this with a lot of fear and intimidation. And we had our first write, and I remember thinking, oh, it's a little bit like hand in glove. Wait a second, that felt good. And then the next write, and the next write, and the next write. So this record was the process of getting over fear for me. And that's why it was so redeeming. It's because I had to force myself through. I saw this neurologist, and he said, I had COVID 3 times. It jacked me up so bad. He said, the only way to get over fear is to go through it. And I was having the most intense panic attacks on planes. And I looked at him and I grabbed him by the throat. No, I'm kidding. I was like, listen here, I will not be getting on one more plane. He was like, don't you ever get off the plane. And it was a lot. And, but I remember just being in that season thinking something more will come. Something more will come. So these songs for me are, my friend said, whether they reach great heights, whether they do what Look Up Child did or not, God wrote this record for you, Lauren. You need to remember, like, he's still in this with you hand in hand. And I feel like if he does something for one person, he has this way of figuring out how to do it for all. So, yeah.
And the results of it are really brilliant. Really brilliant. Lyrically, musically, it's just an amazing experience to listen to the record. But there's one song, of course, my phone shuts down the second I want to ask. I copied just a couple lyrics down to one song. I know what you're going to talk about or what you're going to do here, but if you're not going to do this, we don't want to steal your thunder.
Great. But there's no thunder to be stolen. You're fine.
There's a song on here called Ego. It's deep in the record. It really caught me because some of the things you're talking about coming through 2020, we saw it all on display, right? Yeah. But there's this line that says, and I really love this, the stories we share are picture perfect in every frame. We all want to be known, but we're afraid to be fully seen. Mm-hmm. Just talk about that for a second.
I love that you picked that one. We have this saying in the industry called, it's a sneaker track, sleeper track, sleeper. And it's kind of like the one that you don't know is going to hit you the way that it does. For me, this Ego is one of those. My dream of all dreams was for it to be a single someday, but I have no idea. They figured that stuff out. I have no idea. I can't tell you this is an absolute single or this is not. But that song for me is so special. I remember I was walking out of church, and I don't even remember what the message was about, but all I kept hearing in my head was, I'm done wrestling with my ego. And so I brought it to Jason, who had written with me several songs. He wrote You Say and all the things. And I remember thinking, I could write this with him. But then also Mike, my producer, he's someone who builds tracks and like beats and things like that. So I was like, this could be kind of a fun song to have both of those tied together. Jason is an incredible lyricist. Mike is an incredible musician. It's kind of fun. And a concept like the human ego can be pretty tough to tackle. So I go in, with all the glory. And I'm like, okay, this is how we're going to write this song from the vantage point of telling people, like, lay down your ego. Enough is enough. Look at the world. This is crazy. Can everybody stop? And it started coming out of church, but it rolled into me thinking about so many songs that are like money, women, and parties, and blah, blah, blah. Like, this is the thing to set as a goal for your life. Like, this is the mirror of success, right? And I just was like, man, there's got to be something else that teaches children in this generation that is consuming that so much. Like, actually, the best life, the life with the most fruit, the life with the most joy, the life with the most prize, if you will, is a life that doesn't actually involve that. It's the laying down of your ego that you actually get to be free. And so whenever we started writing it, the glory moment, I'm like, yeah, we got to tell the world, no more ego, like, enough is enough, da-da-da. And Jason looks at me and he's like, girl, I'm pretty sure this is the ego at play. And I was like, no. He said, the only way that you're going to ever be able to write a song like this is if you talk about your ego from first person. Like, that could be kind of the most egocentric thing. I know. I know. Like, hey, you need to get it together. And everybody else is pointing the finger at you. Anyway, it was definitely that moment for me where I was like, all right, let's like dive a little deeper. And that lyric in particular, I have a sweet love-hate relationship with social media. It's not my favorite place in the world. It has really deceived children. It's deceived adults. It's deceived all of us. I'm not afraid to talk about it. I just feel like when a child thinks that they are worth more value by a number of likes they get on a digital screen than a conversation with a classmate or with a, like, that is a problem. That's an actual problem. And so I watched this documentary. It's called Social Dilemma. Yes. It's gut-wrenching. The suicide rates for children, girls the age of 10 to 14 have gone up 158% since social media has been introduced. And I started doing these just like little deep dives, not intense, but like kids would tell me there's these online platforms, you might know, I don't know, but there's these platforms for the entire grade, not just like a classroom, but for the entire grade to be in one chat room online. And how they just tear each other apart on there. And then those kids show up to school the next day, like heartbreaking, right? I just can't, I didn't have that level of intensity of bullying. We had bullying for sure, but that level of intensity is next level. And everything is encapsulated in a filter and in like a perfect looking everything. So the lyric for that came from, we all want this like picture perfect image that we try to carry throughout our lifestyle. And I will never forget my first album cover, okay? It was super airbrushed and like there's all these effects on it and stuff. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, this is so not me. I got to figure out how to get rid of this thing, like whatever. That was the album cover that stuck. But I would go to shows and to sign autographs. Like kids would come in the signing line and I'd go to sign an autograph and these kids would hand over their CDs like with their faces were like, what? And they'd look up at their parents like, that's not her. And I was like, I know, I look a lot different. And it has evolved from like an album cover to like now, back in the day, it was like this high-end Photoshop to get your photo edited and all this stuff. Now it's like you can do it in 5 seconds on your phone, right? And every person, the commonplace person now has access to completely contort their identity. And anyway, I say that on a spiritual level, there's times where we posture ourselves to look a certain way or to hide shame, to hide regret, to hide sorrow or grief, to hide pride, to hide contentment. Like we sit here with this facade to try to cover because we're in such a filter-induced society. And that lyric is all about like shedding light on that, saying, oh, we don't have to live hidden because it's not real to begin with, right? It's not the reality of which we're all on this planet to begin with. And so that one spot was aimed at kids who find themselves trying to hide behind a picture-perfect square on Instagram that is really wrecking our society.
So I know we're going to get to some music here in just a minute, and I don't want to take too long, so I just got a couple of quick questions.
I love it.
The first one is, we're sitting right here in Georgia, home of the championship Georgia Bulldogs.
Ooh, okay.
So my first question is, who's going to win the national championship, and why is it LSU?
Oh, come on. You with me?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. Are you an LSU fan?
Grew up in Baton Rouge, second generation Tiger. Was right across the river from Lafayette.
I knew I loved you.
Yeah.
I could tell. I could feel it when I gave you a hug. Okay, my grandmother and grandfather worked at LSU for like 40 years.
Did I not tell you?
Yes.
I lived in married student housing. I'm pretty sure they got me my apartment.
Really?
I never met them, but
oh my gosh, yeah.
My application would have had to go through your grandpa's office.
Yes, absolutely. He was the president of housing, James Burt Daigle, if you will. He went by Burt. He grew up only speaking French because we come from a super Cajun community, but then he had to learn English the older he got, and just incredible. But when I grew up, and because he was the president of housing, when they'd go to tear down buildings and stuff like that, he would say, well, don't tear that. Give me that door frame. Give me that door. Give me that doorknob. Give me that whatever. So our houses were filled with the old, like engraved LSU doorknobs from classrooms and things like that. So cool. Really cool. So yes, a deep affinity. I went, 2 stories. One, 3 years ago when LSU and Georgia were playing at LSU, we rerouted our entire tour to make sure we got that game. Because my manager is from Georgia. She is about as diehard as you could get. And I will never forget. So we went to that game. We won, of course. She got the flu after. She had to be like in bed after because it made her so sick. But she actually literally got the flu. It was also like 102 degrees at that game. Were you there at that one?
I was not at that one, but I was watching it on TV.
Oh, it was tough. I mean, it was very hot. This was not Joe Burrow year. It was this was Joe Burrow year. Yeah, this was the year of the Burrow. So then, fast forward, we had a show in Hawaii. Luxury. I was like, hello, I'll play in Hawaii any day. Thank you. How far is the flight? Just put me on it. And I remember we were at this hotel and there was a pool and everything. And I was out hiking because I was like, I'm going to get the second half of the game where the action's at. And I'll go hike because I didn't want to miss out on this hike. And I messaged my manager in between, like, during halftime, and I'm like, hey, where are y'all? I'm going to come finish the game out with you guys. We're headed back. I think we had only missed the first quarter, second quarter. And she texted me back, very funny, Lauren. And I was like, no, seriously, where are you? I'm trying to come watch the game. She was like, are you playing a joke on me? And I was like, I actually don't know what you're talking about. I'm just trying to find out where everybody is because it's definitely a house divided with my team, with my camp. Like, we got some Tennessee folks, we got some Georgia folks, Louisiana. And so she thought I was trying to, like, play her by being like, I'm just going to rub it in your face that we're beating you so bad. She was down at the pool, and we were all swimming, like, watching the game on the TV and stuff. And she said she kept going underwater to come back up, to go underwater, to come back, because she was crying, and she knew that if she could go underwater, she'd be just fine. Die hard, Georgia. So that year, the Burrow year, I sang the national anthem for that game. And this is like, talk about one of those God full circle moment kind of things. My grandparents who worked there all those years got to come to the game. So that was really special. And then we, as payback, I went to the national championship with her the following year whenever Georgia won. So it's a mutual love. It's a mutual love.
So I know that you've got a deep love for New Orleans. And I know this. I was in L.A. the night the album came out, so I was there for the thing. Yeah. And you had the painter, and you had. Yes. There's so much New Orleans in this music. Yeah. St. Ferdinand, obviously, but I mean, all through the album, you can just feel it. It's got Lauren written all over it. It just bleeds Louisiana, which is the best ever. But I want to talk about one song because it turned into a party that night, and it's a song that deals with a subject that I think most often we think of as doom and gloom. When we get to end times and somebody does an end times message, it's just, this is not a happy subject. And you have written a song, and we just found out it's going to be the next single. So these are the days. Tell us how you take doom and gloom and turn it into a party.
Oh, okay. So this is fun. We were in Louisiana writing. The three that I mentioned, or Mike Elizondo, my producer, Jason Ingram, I mentioned them. And then there's this other person named Natalie Hemby. Look up her roster. She's incredible. And she was kind of the person that took me under her wing in the process of making this record. She would ask me every day, what do you want to say? What do you want to say? What do you want to say? And in this season where I'm like in the non-essential world, right? I'm like, I don't really have anything to say. And she really helped me find my voice again. Like, okay, God, what are we going to give to the world? And so she was there. And I remember, I guess it was like 2 weeks before this particular writing trip that I went into the studio and I just kept singing, these are the days, right, in the studio over and over again. And I had this vocal melody for the verses. And fast forward 2 weeks later, my producer looks at me and is like, hey, we need to finish that song that you started in the studio. I said, okay, sounds good. And Natalie and Jason were there. And I was just turning it. I was like, I just want to write a song about like getting over difficult times. We all made it through. Let's go ahead and write like a song of joy, right? And then one of them, I don't know which one it was, but spit out the line with the word jubilation. And I said, now, wait a second. That's a little different. I said, I know about jubilation, and it doesn't look like, us just singing a sweet song about getting through hard times. And that word was the word that changed the trajectory of the song for me, the time of Jubilee. And I think I needed to be reminded of that. Like when we were living in pandemic land, I was reading Revelation because I was like, I don't know what's about to happen. We about to... I'm on the edge of my seat over here, okay? I think I've heard of this before. And so I was trying to figure it out. And we had this girls group. And every week on like Wednesdays or Thursdays or something, we would get together via Zoom and just talk about what in the world is going on and figure out like what scripture kind of lines up with what we're looking at here. And it was definitely a time of like me resubmitting my faith in a way, like really finding out, God, where have I allowed other things to enter in that were never meant to placate, you know, your role in my life? And what truths have I like fallen away from that I need to really, and he just kept reminding me, come back to your first love, come back to your first love. And so in the process of that journey, I've told myself, like, do I have the faith to stand in times like this? Like, do I actually really have the faith to like say, even unto death, I will still serve you? Like, Lord, can you show me what that looks like? Can you help me with that? And so fast forward, we're back at the writing retreat thing, and we're all sitting there. This word jubilation comes out, and I'm like, this is the word that satisfies the ache of the times. A lot of times we can get lost in, okay, this terrible thing is on the news. This terrible thing is on the news. This sad story I just heard, it's completely enveloped my day, you know? And we can get lost in that, especially with how loud everything is right now. It's very loud. It's very hard to be still. It's hard not to be busy. Time is a crazy thing. And I remember when I heard that word, like, we got to switch the narrative here, because we can be lost in the sense of everything is falling apart. But that would only be giving way to the fact that we don't know the answer on the other side. And we know that he's going to come back one day, and the trumpet's going to sound, and the clouds are going to roll back, and we're going to get to see glory for himself, right? And it says that every tear he will hold, he will catch. Every tear will be wiped. We were going to see those streets of gold, and there's beauty to come. And so what can you do to like reposition my mindset, to reposition my authority in this, to like reclaim over myself? You have not made me captive to this time. You've actually made me victorious through this time. And through that victory, I'm going to share the joy of what for such a time as this, we're all around. For such a time as this, we get to go marching in and saying, like, whenever Jericho needed to fall, it was because they worshiped and worshiped and worshiped. And any time before battle, they worshiped and worshiped and worshiped. And I don't think that is coincidence. We've heard of that before, right? I think the purpose of the worship isn't because he wants like these grandiose singers. I think it's because he needs their hearts to be reminded, like, you are going to see things that you've never seen before. You're going to experience sorrow like you've never experienced before. You're going to experience the pain of the world like you've never experienced before. But if you continue to set your heart and fix your gaze upon me, I will teach you the strength that it takes to go through those times. And that's the thing. That's what I want the world to feel. It's true. I'm like, yes. I'm like, I want the world to know that we're not held captive to these times. We're not held captive. We are chosen for these times. We are selected for these times. We get to just share the gospel. We get to share his goodness and his kindness. And it doesn't have to be, watery and sweet. We get to really tell people if there's a hunger in the world right now, and we see that based on these headlines. Okay, we can like either read the news with one perspective or we can read the news with the other. And that's the thing. Like, that's what I feel is how do we tell Christians, like, get excited. Get excited. Who knows what's around the corner? Maybe he is coming back. Maybe he's coming back in 200 years. I don't know. Jesus doesn't even know. Apparently, that's what the Bible says, that he doesn't even know the day or the time or the hour. But I do know that there are 10 virgins, and 5 had their lamps filled, and 5 didn't. And the 5 that didn't, they couldn't rely on the 5 that did. And I want to be someone with a full lamp saying, for such a time as this, I got the light, and I'm going to let it shine. This is what that lamp is. That's what the oil is for the lamp, you know? So,
preach. Oh, my goodness. Wow. Man, Lauren, there are those people in life that death you or life you.
Yeah.
And you're a lifer.
Oh,
You life.
thank you.
Do you feel life today? You've lifed
Thank
up today.
you.
You're a tank filler.
Thank you.
So I think this is a good transition.
Okay.
I don't know what's next. I
We
didn't
got
see the
Grant
schedule.
Pittman coming
we
on the
do.
keys.
Wow, this was so good.
Y'all
Thank
are
you.
awesome. Thank you so much.